Hello and welcome to Spike the Punch, a popular segment of the All About X-Men Comics podcast. I'm host Scorpio Moon, and hosting with me is...
Johnny Alpha, so happy to be back.
We haven't talked about comics, X-Men or otherwise, in a long time. Maybe we should answer why that is.
Life happens, man. I mean, you know what I mean? You got shit to take care of. I got work and stuff. It's nobody's fault. It just stuff like that happens, bro. You know what I mean? It's just the way things are. We don't get paid. We're not. We are. I'd like to think we're professionals, but we're not paid to do this. You know what I mean? We still have to provide for ourselves and our families. So you had to do what you had to do, and hey, there's no fingers being pointed, pal.
But it's funny. Back in a way earlier episode, I joked that if they actually went through with killing off Wolverine, I'd quit comics. And it kind of looks like that came true.
Yeah, but I mean, we also kind of joked about saying that, at this point, with what Cornell and Soule have done with him, that, killing him off is the only dignified thing that they could do with the character at this point. So we've said a lot, you know what I mean? And I know there's no way you're never going to read a comic again, especially your Walking Dead. I know you've been sneaking that one in, even though, I don't read nothing. I know you're reading that shit, bro.
Yeah, I think I did read 3 issues that I missed. I'm trying to think now. I think I've missed about 4 months of comics. I just read my X books from August.
Jesus. Oh man.
And now I'm like, all right, should I go out and get the books for September and jump right back into it? And I mean, I want to, but at the same time, all that shit that you've always accused me of being so aggro about, it's all still out there. I mean, Uncanny Avengers is getting a new fake numbering, and I mean, Fantastic Four, that's not in our wheelhouse, but I mean, they're re-ending and re-changing their numbers for the 5th time over the past 2 years.
Who cares? That's fucking Fantastic Four. Uncanny Avengers, I mean, I know it probably doesn't rank actually being relaunched, but it's going to be a different team, you know what I mean? There's going to be different members on it now, but I don't see why they couldn't just okay, this is the new team. When Reminder took over the Secret Avengers after Brubaker, I mean, they kept the same numbering. It just was his team led by Hawkeye. Cap was off the team. Moon Knight was on the team. You know what I mean? And that was just a couple years ago. They really are going buck wild with this relaunch and renumbering, you know what I mean? But it doesn't hurt my feelings like it does yours, you know what I mean? Some people just really oh, it's killing me, and it's I've gone over this with you several times. I read mostly Image and Avatar, and those things run in minis, you know what I mean? So I'm going and getting a new #1 for that series every couple of months anyway. So I just see oh, Marvel's doing it too now.
Well, at least the way they package it in those other companies is more honest. Just with Marvel, the marketing is so obnoxious, it just makes me not want the product.
Right. At Image and stuff like that, it's what the guys can afford to make and what the studio mandated from them. When we talked to the guy that did Furious, he's he wanted to do 9 issues, he said, and they're no, you get 6. So yeah, he's gonna have to have another #1 because he wants to carry on, but he ain't at Marvel, you know what I mean? He can't run okay, I'm going to do 13 issues and then I'm going to draw a mustache on this character, so we're gonna have to start it all over again.
Yeah. Yeah, man, basically, and then you've got Act Shit, of course, which I've checked out some of the things going on in there, and I guess I'm not spoiling it for you yet because you haven't read it all, but the endless circle jerk of retconning is another one of my big pet peeves. It just mucks up the continuity so much, and it's just so ugly and so infuriating. It's only going to get worse when Secret Wars comes out again.
I don't know. I'm really excited for Secret Wars. I've been really bulking up on my Avengers reading again, and I got all the new Avengers books and the regular Avengers books and Secret Avengers, and I'm just Avengers crazy right now. So I'm really excited to see the new Avengers and the rest of the Avengers go into war. That's going to be badass, and I really hope Tony Stark gets a boot stuck in his ass.
Right on, man. It's funny that you take the the good approach to it or whatever, because I was just looking at, some articles the other day, and I saw someone had written, what might Secret Wars mean for the X-Men? And like they did like a top 10 kind of list things of like, all the exciting possibilities that could come out of this event. And I think to myself like, why don't I have that attitude? Like, why do I read Secret Wars, Marvel Universe will never be the same again? And I just think, fuck. And I imagine all the ways that it can suck.
Well, I don't know, man. See, I look at it like this: Nick Spencer and Jonathan Hickman are helming this thing, and they are two of my favorite writers, and they're two of the most creative people in the business right now. So I don't really see how it could be as awful as all that.
Well, I mean, there's plenty of awful things going on in comics, and this is one that I've got to get your opinion on before we actually do this. I mean, you've read Uncanny Avengers at least up through last year, right?
Right.
So you saw what they did with Rogue.
Yeah. I haven't really been happy with her character in that book since it started. They just made her kind of like a bitch and like stuck up for no real particular reason, which is so opposed to like the normal character. I just really wish that Remender would just leave that character alone, let her go back to X-Men.
Yeah, maybe she can actually get some real character growth there besides because I mean, basically what happened, what they did is they just brought Rogue back to status quo again. It's like, look, she can't control her powers, and look, she's got a personality stuck in her brain. It's like she's changed not at all in the decades since you first met her.
Right. Dude, they do that with characters. I mean, like, my buddy behind me that reads Spider-Man, he says, like, every time that they're actually making progress with the character, a new creative team takes over, and next thing you know, Pete's a moron, and he can't hold out a job again. And, like, I hate creators that do that, and, like, I don't want to bag on Remender, because I'm a huge fan of his, but he has not done Rogue and a couple of the other Uncanny X-Men members favors at all with his handling of the characters.
And I'm not trying to egg you on, but I mean, Rogue is like one of your favorite mutants. It's like, come on, guys, like this is what you get. Like, I guess that's part of the cyclical nature of comic book telling, but like it matches the marketing. 'Cause like they have to revert back to new number ones every year. Well, they have to revert the character back to their status quo every year, just so they can shake them to their core all over again.
Oh yeah, well I mean like until Axis happened, I never actually considered Uncanny Avengers canon 616 storytelling. It's so off on its own and it's in weird tangents. I kind of just consider it as like some kind of bastard child of the Ultimates and Earth X, type of thing.
That's how it always felt, and even like the way it looked visually, it gave you that feel. Like, yeah, this is kind of off there somewhere. But I mean, we can't really headcanon that anymore, can we?
No, it seems that like they're tying it to everything with this Axis thing, and like I said, I haven't read word one of it yet. You know what I mean? Like with events like that, I really like to get the book and just read it all at once because, especially with it being written by Remender and it being basically a Uncanny Avengers story, like there's no way you could read it by month and keep your sanity. I mean, we learned
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, true that, man. True that. That's a hell of a good point. That's some good comic book advice right there. So, yeah, I think it kind of goes without saying that if I've barely even read an X-Men comic over the past 4 months, the All About X-Men Comics podcast is more or less legally dead.
Yeah, sadly, I mean, like, I think that maybe at some point, like, there might be some kind of a normalcy that's returned to your daily schedule, and we might be able to retake it up, and we will just start at that point if we want to pick it up, or we might just do these from now on, just fun little jump back ins and talk about, like, the kind of things that really caught our eye and we're very interested in right now. Because, like, I haven't completely gave up on X-Men. I'm still reading X Factor, X Force, Uncanny, and All News, so. I got a few books that I'm still really into.
Yeah, sadly, X Factor is going to be ending, right?
All New X Factor is over. I don't know. I don't read them preview books, so that's too bad. But honestly, as weird as this version of it was, I didn't see it lasting for too long, anyways. To tell you the truth, it didn't have the magic that the last run had. You know what I mean? It's a cool team and a cool visual style, but it's just not as gripping as the Madrox team was.
Plus, what modern comic is going to make it for hundreds of issues anymore anyway?
Oh yeah, let's see. Um, Deadpool and probably Captain America are like the longest running Marvel books at this point, right? I mean, like they're still. I mean, Spider-Man's way up there, but they had to like jump his number back to where he was if they didn't kill him and like have babies with him and all that weird shit. So
Yeah, I think Deadpool was pretty much like their front runner as far as like,
And
playing
he
by their own rules, and he's gonna die anyway.
Yeah, which I don't think is going to stick. I think they're just doing it to mock the Wolverine thing, to tell you the truth. But who knows? I have no idea what Marvel's doing right now. Like I said, there's a couple X-Men books that I'm really into still. I'm having fun with a lot of the Avengers stuff. But my main reading is pretty much Moon Knight and Iron Fist: The Living Weapon and Elektra. Those are like the kind of books that really got my interest right now, and those are so weird and fringe and off on their own that like I don't even consider them really like canon Marvel at this point, basically because they don't tie into anything.
Yeah, I think of all the books I want to read, a lot of those, like those fringe type books that you're talking about, like that Electra, that Moon Knight stuff, I think that's where I might kind of want to go. But I think really, as far as the X-Men, I really at least got to get back into Uncanny because I miss those kids.
Oh yeah, and where we left off on the show, it really picked up. I didn't like the art of the whole Professor X's will thing and like the goofy kid in South Carolina, but I really liked where that story went, and I thought it was great in the I forget the name of the hardbound that I just got with that story in it, and I'm glad I finally finished it because like I kind of was bummed out with where we the last issue we left off covering when we read it, and I really enjoyed it. I really liked where it went, and I like that it's back to the normal mainstay artist. That guy's got a really great style.
Good to hear. Good to hear. Okay, so while Marvel continues to troll their fans, and I sort out my nerd raid issues and issues of free time, I hate to see my nerddom, just completely slipping from me. I've got to have time for at least one or two comics a week. So, that being said, shall we spike the punch?
Yeah, man, spike it up.
Oh yeah!
And Johnny, you're going to lead us off with.
Supreme Blue Rose #6 by my favorite author in the world, Warren Ellis. And beautiful, gorgeous, amazing art by Tula Late. I mean, her stuff just gets so much more vivid and just, I love it, issue by issue. And basically, in this issue, we are finally getting some answers and we're finally understanding what's going on in this book, which kind of disappoints me a little bit because I love the David Lynchian approach that the first 5 issues have had, but it's kind of cool to know that it does have an aim, and a focus to it. This issue basically picks up right with the crux of what happened in issue 5, which Diana, she's interviewing this priest, John O. Lantrim, I think it is, and basically he's telling her that she needs to back off. She shouldn't be working for Darian Dax. And then he gets up and man, his headlights on fire, and like it's like some straight up like horror movie stuff. And then the dude with no face, like her bodyguard, he comes in and smokes that guy. Well, he shoots at him, and like the guy kind of just puffs away. I think that he's still alive. But, and then you basically end up finding out that guy is part of Supreme's crew, but everything's so goofed up, and you find out that through what the Probe, who is the hot chick in the blue shirt that you've been seeing jumping from time frame to time frame in the past couple books, she's called the Probe, and her and Dr. Rocket sit down and they actually explain what's been going on. And you find out that there's like infinite versions of these characters, and every time they've finished their goals, they go to this place. It's called the Supremacy, that's kept by Supreme's kid Danny, and that's the weird place where Diana's dreams have been coming from. And all these characters are basically characters from this really awful Rob Liefeld comic from the 90s that Warren Ellis decided to take and run wild and do his whole David Lynch thing with, which I gotta love because like if I'd have known going into this, even with Ellis writing it, that it was based off of some Liefeld book, I think I'd have been a little more jaded towards it than I am. But God, I love this ride. I love where it's going. And even though that it's a goofy Superman analog and this guy Ethan Kane, who is Supreme that they're searching for, that they pretty much hinted that he's going to be showing up in the next issue because he's on the cover. I'm really excited. You know what I mean? I love analogs, and since this guy is like an analog of Superman being handled by Warren Ellis, I'm pretty sure he's going to be a very interesting analog of Superman. Also in this issue, Professor Knight walks out of the television and comes into the reality of this book, and so does his villain, the Evening Primrose. So a lot of interesting stuff, a lot of really weird stuff that's been kind of jabbing at you from the pages of this book has finally come to fruition, and there's finally a little bit of understanding going on in it. So Oh man, it is a quintessential issue. If you are been reading this and like you're interested in this book at all, like this is definitely one that you need to check out because like I said, you're finally getting a little understanding, a little bit of explanation. You also getting a couple new questions, which is always awesome when I love authors doing that. So yeah, man, that's how I'm feeling this book.
So I'll slam Marvel for their reality-changing events, but here you have a book and a character that totally revolves around it. Like this whole thing is about reality and rewriting itself, and that's been the character for a long time, and it's pretty head trippy, and like Warren Ellis really runs with that and makes it better. But I mean that does come from the original line too. Like it was always kind of a really extreme sci-fi deal before, but I think here, especially and even more with the visual art, they've made it extra ethereal, and like everything that happens seems even harder to believe, which makes it more believable, if that makes any sense. Like something that strange needs to be painted as strange. It shouldn't just feel like Tuesday.
Right. And that's definitely what you get with this book and with Tula Latte's art style, like you said. Even when the character's not dreaming, you feel like there's actually still part of that there. And then you end up finding out in this issue that our main protagonist, Diana Dane, the reporter that's on the case, she has had mental issues. That's why she got let go of her other reporting job because she sees things, period, which kind of explains that she when this reality reset itself and everything got goofy and this and the supremacy kind of I don't know, something weird. They haven't explained what happened, but there somehow it made contact with Earth and it made that crash that they said is an airplane, and that's how this Supreme and everything kind of came into being a couple months ago in this reality. So that really lends to the visual style and the storytelling of the book as well, I feel.
And I think that's almost a little bit of a Kansas City shuffle, like kind of a misdirection, because like you said, they explain a lot more finally in this issue. And like the art all makes it seem like so much more surreal, but the art it makes this book seem like it makes less sense than it actually does. But the story itself can actually be a lot more straightforward if you just kind of like sit down and think about it for a minute.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So it's not really like that confusing, but it wants to look like it is. But then they balance that with all the structure. We've got these powerful interests at work here. And like like with Dax and stuff, it's like this corporate espionage going on. So while
Well,
it's all really head trippy, it's not random. Like there's intent.
right. Well, I mean, from what I understand, he's basically like back in the day in the old version of the book, he was your average like Lex Luthor kind of guy. But basically, Ellis has taken him, and in this reality, he's kind of like this savant guy that's agoraphobic. I mean, he does not leave his building, and he makes a big point in this issue that like he crosses the line and he actually leaves his office and he's going to go take care of stuff, and he explains that to the Princess of Venus or whoever the redheaded chick is that's kind of ethereal that kind of shows up and talks to all the characters every now and then. Even with him, you know what I mean? They've kind of painted him as like this weird autistic savant kind of character instead of just having him be Lex Luthor analog, you know what I mean?
Yeah, they're trying to do a little more with it, and it's funny how that kind of compares to My Spike, which I mean we'll get to later.
All right,
But
yeah, we both did Superman analog
yeah,
books, which is hilarious.
yeah, but they both just kind of did different things with it. There's a lot of ways to play with that. This is definitely a big boy comic. This is not somewhere you can go just to get your fix of boob windows and people in tights punching each other.
Oh yeah, I call it a Superman analog, and we have not even seen the alternate identity. We haven't seen Ethan Crane yet. We haven't seen anything of Supreme in the 6 issues yet, which I find just the most amazing thing about the book is that the main character hasn't been present one panel, but the book is more entertaining than probably all 70 or 90 years of Superman comics put together, for me at least.
So see, you were worried they were going through it too fast, but they're playing the long game a little bit here.
Right. And I mean it's an image book, so like it's gone 6 issues, but like Ellis doesn't like to do ongoings, you know what I mean? He's done a few. He's done like Transmetro and he did Planetary and Freak Angels, but I mean that's only that's a fraction of his books. He really likes to keep it at about like 12, maybe 18 issues at the most. So I didn't really think that this book was going to like go on forever. You know what I mean? So I like that this arc is kind of wrapping itself up, and I'm really interested in actually seeing Supreme show up, and I really want to see how this character is represented in this version.
Yeah, man, I feel so dumb for not putting that together sooner. That it actually related to, that joke character from the '90s, Supreme. But yeah, that's what really, really got me like more interested in wanting to come back to this. Like I remember you had used the first issue a while back, and I was like, all right, cool, rock on. Like this is a pretty good comic, but if it tries too hard just to be like, weird the whole time, like they're gonna have to give me a little more to it. And then there's this that I'm like, oh, duh, that's so fucking clever. I'm so stupid. And I mean, I know at least one of the issues of it I read because I didn't just read this one, like, and that's why I thank you for picking this because I really did want to read this comic. It actually says like on the front like intro page like credit to Supreme created by Rob Liefeld.
Right, and I missed it when I first got the first issue. Like I just buy anything with Warren Ellis's name on it, so I was just like, oh, cool, he's got a new Image book. I was getting my issue of Trees and stuff, and then like I was like, oh, he's got another one, and I got it, and like I checked it out and I read it, and like I even spiked with it before I knew that's what it was.
Yeah, man, I definitely remember that. This issue itself probably wouldn't be a great one to start with. Like, just to pick up line, because, I mean, you're probably not going to pick up on any of the techno babble. Like, you need those pieces they laid down for when they, like, tie it all together here for it to really, really make sense for you. But I think it wouldn't hurt to pick up multiple copies. These pages would be great to wallpaper your bedroom with.
Right. And also, I would say, because I'm a huge fan of this, but like you said, it would be a weird place to jump on. So if you had not been reading this all along, I would say get the trade paperback for this. There's probably only about 2 issues before that comes out. So, it wouldn't be too bad of an idea to wait for that. It's probably going to be $10 because that's what Image does with their first editions of trade paperbacks. So, yeah, man. Like it'd definitely be probably the best way to get it and read it.
Okay, so favorite part.
My favorite part would probably be the part where Darius Dax is talking to the faceless dude on the phone, and he's like, "Oh, Jack-o'-lantern, that's a terrible joke," and that's the character's actual superhero name.
Yeah.
I thought that was very clever, kind of funny. Yeah.
Yeah, I liked their exchange too, how it wasn't just like the typical sneering villain who was like, "You failed me for the last time, minion," and he kills him or something. Like this is just a very goal-oriented corporate kind of guy here. I think my favorite part was just how pissed people were getting in this comic. Dax is like, "Screw you, I'll build my own world," and Diana's threatening to shoot people.
Yeah, she tells that ghosty chick at the museum that yeah, I'm just gonna let her smoke you and have like the faceless guy hide your body if you don't tell me what I need to know.
Yeah, I like seeing how people at the end of their rope react.
Well, I mean, she's had a rough ride. Like I said, the past couple issues have been really weird. Like I think it was issue 4 where she gets to Little Haven and she's talking to people, and it's just so odd and random the shit that they say to her. And then she goes and talks to this priest, and he turns into like a fireball and starts threatening her, telling her not to go looking for Ethan. I mean, like she has not had a decent ride. Not to mention, like she's already had mental problems, what she perceives as mental problems before this, but she's actually just tied into this reality, this reset of reality. But like as she sees it, she's had a breakdown, so she's working with what she has, and I like that they're not making her a total like bitch. You know what I mean? She's a very likable character still. You know what I mean? Which is kind of rare that people do with a Lois Lane type character. Usually they just make her annoying.
Yeah, I do still like her a lot, and I love what they did that. It's like you need a crazy person who's used to dealing with this amount of crazy, who like won't blink twice at it or whatever. That was great. So yeah, this is a heck of a comic, man. Excellent choice. And me, I went with Jupiter's Legacy #5.
Hey, you actually went with the book that you're able to keep up with because I mean,
Yeah.
well, it's hilarious because like Millar and his slow ass writing. Like, didn't you spike with issue 3 like 8 months ago? Or like, I mean, it was really early on when we were doing like our first podcast, and you spiked with issue 3, and like issue 5 just barely came out. I was just like, wow, is that right? It is, man. Jesus, is this the second arc? No, it's the same arc. Okay.
Yeah, dude, that's literally my first point. I love how I haven't read a comic in 4 months, and I only missed one issue of this.
Well, the thing is he bites off more than he can chew. He's got like 9 series going, and he thinks that he's Garth Ennis. You know what I mean? He thinks he's Warren Ellis. He thinks he can like write all these books, but he can't. He tries to do this, and like this is the same thing he did at Marvel, and like all of his books start running behind, and you got to wait like 8 months for issue 5 to fucking come out. It's like I get it, Millar. You want to be like one of the rest of them UK guys that could just pump books out, but you just can't, bro.
No, and they even went to bi-monthly with this on purpose. It was only supposed to be one every 2 months, and then that like they couldn't even keep that schedule. Like they were worse than us with at the end of the show, like trying to do like, okay, so let's do 1 month of comics at once. And I think that's actually what I think they decided now after this issue that like they're just gonna try and get a couple issues done and then release them more regularly. So like we're not gonna see this comic again for like a year or something.
Is it him and Quietly's both problem? Because MPH is a book that started well after it, and like that one seems to come out pretty regular.
I thought it was more the visual artist on
It's
this
Frank
one.
Quietly's fault. Okay.
I mean, that's what I've heard. I mean, I didn't research it incredibly intently. That's just what, random sources and people I talk to have put forth as most likely. But, quick backstory here. The world's superpowered types teamed up and killed their Superman analog so they could just take over America and rule it themselves, since they're so great and normal people are so dumb. And now the few heroes and villains who wouldn't play along with that, they're on the run being hunted by this ruling party. So we kind of flashed forwarded a little bit, I guess. Now, earlier issues of this were a little deconstructionist, but at this point, Miller is just straight up using the tropes.
Right. This book reminded me a lot of The Incredibles, to tell you the truth. This particular issue.
Yeah, especially with like the kid and stuff. And like it's not really commentary on it so much as just straight up using it at this point, but it's all so clean. It's not convoluted, it's not mired in decades of reboots and retcons and back and forth switcheroos and break the status quo, return to the status quo, break it again. I mean, like, as we've seen with DC and Marvel, you can renumber your books. Hell, you can reboot your whole universe. But that baggage still comes with you. But everything in this comic is just light and free, and even with the dark subject matter, it's just a breath of fresh air.
Right, which is odd for Millar because a couple of years ago he was really trying to grasp his inner Garth Ennis, you know what I mean? He was trying to write these kind of like really messed up storylines. So to see him do something so innocent and fun and kind of run of the mill was kind of interesting.
But it's of course exactly why I like it, because it can give you just those basics, but in a way that I can enjoy. I mean, even the visual art has plenty of like free space in it that just it's clean. It leaves you feeling uncumbered. It's everything the mainstream, capes and tights comic fan loves about comics. It's both nostalgic and modern at the same time. And even for a comic book, it's kind of wish fulfillment-y just to see heroes and villains do some of the kinds of things you wish they would do in normal comics.
Oh, right. I mean, like when it first started, I actually was thinking that, like, oh man, I'm gonna hate this issue because I had read that so many times. The mean guy coming in and like interviewing, but he knows that this person's the person he's looking for, and like even when they try to escape, he's arranged things so like he's 10 steps ahead. I was just like, man, really, this is all you're gonna do, man. I was very unimpressed with the first scene, but then, like you said, you get to the kid and you get to the daughter of the Superman guy, and the whole I don't know, what was it, like 8-page revolution where they just go to war, and I left the book just like, yeah, fuck you. It's awesome. I mean,
Yeah, man. Yeah.
he kind of touched on what Mark Waid got with irredeemable. You know what I mean? It's kind of scraping that line, which I think is a very good place, a very good thing to try to get at, because ever since that book's gone away, I've missed it so bad. And like I got a feeling that this one's going to kind of fill that gap a little bit. You know what I mean? It's not going to be irredeemable, but it's irredeemable-esque. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it would have to come out more often to fill that gap. But I mean, yeah, I think this is probably going to be one of my favorites since Irredeemable. Once it's all said and done there. I think after all this time, that more readers are probably going to wish that more happened in this issue as far as moving the plot, because we really only get so far. But like you said, there are just so many heck yeah moments. I mean, especially for someone like me, this could be my only comic and I'd still be happy. And it practically was. My favorite part was the use of superpowers. Throughout this series, it's always been very detailed and clever, and this issue was no exception.
Right. I really liked when the mom and dad showed up and saved the kid. It was very violent and very brutal. I mean, they actually showed like she dropped like a pillar on Captain Cool Guy Bad Guy, and like, but I mean, like it wasn't like a pillar of blood coming out, but you knew that that guy was squished. You know what I mean? And like the dude rides the train in there and just like crushes all his henchmen and stuff. And it was nice and it was good and it's actually pretty hardcore, but it's still kind of all age, you know what I mean? And I like when people can pull that off, you know what I mean?
That is a really hard rope to walk. No doubt about that. And yeah, it's so great to see them actually just show up to save their loved ones like you're supposed to. Like, how does Superman let Lois Lane get kidnapped so many times? Like, you should have
Right.
like special hearing, like attuned to her voice, like 24 hours a day. And like, you're someone who's actually kind of doing it. I love it a lot. It's like, wrong. Mommy always hears. Bam.
Well, right, and like how big of a cock that guy was with just like the, oh my, this is over the top. I mean, I knew he was a kid, but he's crying for his mommy, you know? It's just like, oh, you are a douche nugget, and then like she just shows up and fucks him up. You're just like, you deserved that, man. You know what I mean? You were fucking with the kid.
yeah,
I mean,
you,
like,
yeah, you deserved every bit of blood you lost there.
uh,
Okay, so that was our show. So, don't really know exactly what to expect from us going forward, but you can always find me on facebook.com/Scorpio Moon. That's Scorpio with a K. Also, twitter.com/Scorpio Moon. PSN-radio.com. Johnny and I are both pretty active on there, especially with the Roundtable show, which we'll be ending this show to go into soon. And of course, the X-Men are not completely done. So, I mean, if you're ever going to look for anything more on them from us, or even just any other updates on what we might be up to, you can probably find them on facebook.com/All About X-Men Comics Podcast. Our website is down, but that page is still up. So, thank you everyone for listening, and we'll see you next time you decide to hit play.